I think we're often not thinking about. We have the assumption of what we mean when we say that, but that word specifically is to solve. So we had something solved at some point. Welcome to another edition of Resisting Pretense. This is actually our official New Year's, I was going to say resolution. This is our official New Year's episode. We're going to talk about New Year's resolutions.
Happy New Year!
Yes, Happy New Year. All right. We endeavor to have...
Take three.
Take three. Yeah. We're endeavoring to have honest conversations about a life of faith in modern culture and hopefully inspire those conversations in your life. So thank you again to our unofficial sponsor, Diet Coke.
As Tom takes a drink.
And I think we can dive right in.
All right.
Who's in charge here?
So we're talking about resolutions, right?
We are talking about resolutions. Did you know? I know that you did know because we talked about it in our prep session, but I didn't know before our prep session that the first mention of New Year's resolutions dates back to ancient Babylon, like 2,000 years BC. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
Yeah. So this
is nothing new.
This is nothing new. We're not special for.
Does that mean that resolutions have been broken for a long time?
Yeah. For as long as there have been New Year's resolutions, there have been broken resolutions and disappointment and weeping and gnashing of teeth.
So on our honor of this, I thought it'd be kind of fun to look up some comical New Year's resolutions.
Oh, you thought so, huh?
Yeah. So, well, there were ones like, I will stop considering other people's feelings when they so obviously don't consider mine. If that unwashed fellow sits next to me again, I'll tell him he stinks.
Wow.
I will not bore my boss with the same excuses for taking leaves. I will think up some new excuses. I will do less laundry and use more deodorant.
These are terrible.
I will assure my lawyer that I will never again show up drunk at a custody hearing.
I think if you've showed up drunk to a custody hearing once, you should make it a habit because you do not need to be in charge of children.
I will really try and figure out why I really need 9 email addresses. I will stop sending email.
How many do you have?
2. Well, 2 that I use.
My work, my personal. I have a soccer-related one for the booster club.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess 3 if you include, yeah.
And then I kind of have an old Gmail one that I don't use except maybe for like recovery of passwords from my other email. And then I have the iCloud one. So I think I have 5, but I only really use 2 of them regularly.
I use 2 regularly. I do have one that dates back to a time when I wanted different accounts on the same game. And so I had to have different email accounts so you could set up different
That's awesome.
things. So
all right. What else you got on terrible New Year's resolutions?
I will stop sending emails to my wife. This is from the husband. I resolve to work with neglected children, my own. I will read the manual just as soon as I can find it.
Mm-hmm. It's online now.
I will not hang around girls. They think you love them, and that sucks.
I no longer have the option of that resolution.
Yeah, no kidding. When I hear a funny joke, I will not reply, LOL, LOL.
For the love of God, please.
I will remember to brush teeth with bristly end of toothbrush. I don't even know why.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I've had enough of these.
I will always replace the gas nozzle before driving away from the pump.
Oh, yeah.
There was one that said, I will stop ringing the call bell in the airplane to get the stewardess's number. So I can't.
So it could be worse.
Oh yeah.
Whatever your life
certainly
is, you could be one of those people.
Yeah.
Maybe
well,
if you are one of those people, I'm not even going to apologize because those are terrible resolutions.
they're much more creative than what I normally come up with.
Right.
So I got
Points for creativity?
yeah,
Okay.
points for creativity.
Well, I think the question, at least in my circles, is kind of like to resolve or not to resolve. Like, do we even bother with this process? But you and I had an interesting conversation about that word, resolution. And it was kind of this, I had another experience like this where a compound word like this, when you broke it apart, all of a sudden took on a fresh kind of vibrancy in its meaning.
Right.
It's not terribly different, but resolve, when we think about resolutions, I think we're often not thinking about, we have the assumption of what we mean. I think we're often not thinking about that word specifically. We have the assumption of what we mean when we say that, but that word specifically is to resolve. So we had something solved at some point, hopefully. And now we are resolving this issue in our lives because it has broken down. So it's kind of like, in a way, you said it this way. I don't know. Maybe we need to talk about to resolve or to resolve. Like, resolve the resolutions I think sometimes we make are often things we've maybe never done well. It's a little bigger category than resolve, but I like that, the nuance of that meaning. Like, I'm going to try to resolve this issue. Like
Well, yeah,
I
and
tried,
I think
I failed.
If I was to
I'm gonna
talk
try.
about
Like, I'm not going to give up.
probably
I'm going to try
one of
again.
the most common ones is to lose weight. Well, my weight problem was solved when I was 18, but it became a problem as I've gotten older, and so now I have to resolve that. Or, a better example might be as we get older, we realize it's really kind of important to eat a little healthier than I did when I was in my 20s. And so I'm resolving, I am solving my nutrition because that's important. But just because I jump off the cliff and eat, a whole pizza, or doesn't mean that my whole year has to be shot or that I've thrown my resolution out the window. It's more, I have an opportunity to start again, to resolve what is a problem in my life.
Do you actually do like an annual New Year's resolution? Is this a part of do you actually do
I think years ago it was.
Is this a part of your habit?
I am much more geared towards setting a goal, not necessarily resolving, but setting a goal for the year of what I want to accomplish. And it's not that I give up on it if I've failed along the way. I just come back and say, I'm still working towards the goal. I've just set it on the back burner for some reason. I've got a book that I'm writing that's probably going to take me the rest of my life. But each year I go, oh, well, my goal is I'm going to write in it every day. And then the next day comes by and it's just too busy and my brain is shot. And if you could do that,
Are you wanting me to publish that for you after you die or what?
You
don't want to be accountable
I may
for what's
finish
in it.
It'll require editing, I think.
I recommend you
probably
finish
the
it
bigger
sooner.
thing. So, yeah, probably. But there's goals
take the rest of
I
your life?
try and set every year, but I don't know if I necessarily resolve. Do I want to lose weight? Yeah. Are there things I'm working towards? But it's not like I say, January 1st, I think I'll, but I will come into December and I will think about, what is it that I want to happen next year? What is it that's going to happen? What is it that, and it's interesting, and I'm going to jump off a tangent here that we didn't talk about, but has come into really kind of a stark contrast, is that
Oh no.
there are things that are going to happen in the new year that I have no control over. That that are going to be a part of my life, and I don't know if they're necessarily a part of my resolution or resolution I'm creating, but they are going to affect the next year ahead. And I think about how does that play out in this role? And I guess where I'm going with this is that I pretty much know that my mom will pass away in the next year. In some ways, she is going to resolve this life and enter into a life with Jesus. But that is also going to create a new view of 2024 for me. And what does that look like? What is that gonna, how does that change anything I'm dealing with? And we all have things that, you and I have conversations. I have conversations with other people that they could look at it right now and go, I see some things that are coming up in 2024 that are going to directly affect my life in the next year. What does that look like? So it created kind of this whole different spin on this conversation that I had not thought about, because oftentimes we're thinking about, what do I want to start in 2024? Well, some things have started in 2023 that are going to have a direct effect on what happens in the year ahead.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I have some things that are impending in family.
Right.
That,
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I have some things that are impending in family life that, I thought maybe some of this would happen this year, and it didn't work out that way. But I have two adult kids living at home but they're in that season of life where they're about to establish their own kind of home lives. And so very likely next year, and probably early next year, both of my kids will move out. And my home will return
resolve.
to the underwear only zone.
Don't go to Tom's house at odd times.
Wear pants.
Don't go to Tom's house at odd times.
But no, I mean, it's just going to be, it'll be a very different season of life. And it's one that, frankly, my wife and I have looked forward to. We love our kids, but we've anticipated this season of our daily, weekly routines revolving really just around us. And so that'll be neat. And it'll be neat to see what shape my kids' lives take as they get into it, like full expressions of adulthood. And so that'll be cool. But it's interesting to like have that sense of anticipation of like, there's big things coming.
Well, and how do you,
for you, huge.
How do your
that's
current
a massive life transition
resolutions play into that? Because now that creates a whole different.
Yeah.
And I think so many times that resolutions take time. And when you're trying to schedule that time to meet those resolutions, now you have something that's stirring the pot. Now it just puts a whole different spin on what you're trying to accomplish.
I'm actually kind of anti. It just puts a whole different spin. I don't care if other people do them.
Yeah. I'm actually kind of anti-resolution. I don't care if other people do them, but for me, I'm very anti the idea of specifically of a New Year's resolution. Kind of like you, I have goals that I pursue, and when I accomplish them, then I set a new one and keep moving on. And like if I accomplish them, I set a new one, and then move forward with that. And some of them may, just because I may have a goal of something I want to do by the end of the year, and then either I accomplish it or I don't. But if I do, then I'll set a new goal in January. But it really has nothing. It has more to do with the completion of a previous goal than January and a new year. And so, and I think what I dislike in my own experience with New Year's resolutions is that sense of and I know it doesn't have to be treated that way, but often I feel like people treat New Year's resolutions like I'm never going to do this thing again, and then you buckle down and you try to grit it out, and or I'm gonna go to the gym 4 days a week, and you buckle down and you do it 4 days a week, and then you get to the end of January or February, and you have a week where you don't, you go once or you don't go at all, and you're like, I blew it. Now I don't have to do, and failure. Don't even try anymore. And I'm like, nah. I feel like that's
everything is
a
a
really
failure then. Everything
terrible
feels
way
like
to
I have
develop your
failed.
life.
And I think that's why I lean more into goals, is because it doesn't take away what I'm trying to accomplish. No matter what I kind of slide back or slide forward to, I'm always looking to something that I'm trying to achieve. And I think that so many times we start the same resolution over and over and over again. Oh, I'm going to lose weight this week or this year. Oh, I'm going to lose 10 pounds this year. Oh, I'm going to lose 20 pounds this year. And then it doesn't happen. And it's on this insanity merry-go-round. Oh, I'm going to not eat as much so I lose weight, or I'm going to exercise so I don't lose weight, or, and so
Right.
we get into this idea of, and it's attributed to Einstein. I don't know if he actually said it, but to do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, is the definition of insanity. And so I think that's why I like the idea of resolving versus resolving. Yeah.
I Googled that, by the way, and according to Google, which may or may not be 100% accurate, but that phrase was first published in a Narcotics Anonymous book in 1981. So who knows? Maybe they got it from Einstein, but I love how that to me gave such a great nuance to the phrase, because here's people dealing with serious life debilitating addiction, and they're like, you can't just keep doing the same thing. Like you've got to do something different to solve this. You've got to flip the switch on the nuclear option to sometimes to solve these big issues in your life. And yeah, I think resolutions are the same way. If it's just I'm going to try again, and I'm going to try again the same way that I've tried and failed before, then I think we're just kind of spinning our wheels. Like, goals are most effective when there are very specific action steps on how to accomplish that goal. If I keep doing a diet, or if I keep exercising, but I keep coming back to the same resolution, there's something more to it that needs to be dealt with, not just the scientific, don't eat as much, get more active. Because if I'm quitting so quickly, or if there's probably something emotionally or mentally going on that's causing me not to engage in that. And so that's why I like the idea of resolving it is right.
Not that I want to create resolutions, but to think through, okay, why is that happening? What is it that I keep setting this and it's not happening? So there's another piece I'm missing. I keep setting this and it's not happening. So there's another piece I'm missing.
Yeah. So maybe asking the question, not just saying maybe I shouldn't eat so many Oreos, but asking the question,
Exactly.
Why, when anything bad happens in my life, do I eat a whole bag of Oreos? Like there's an emotional component in addition to the logistical.
Exactly. And so I think
Stop
that,
eating too
again,
much.
coming to that idea,
There's
of
more to it than that.
resolving the things in our life that we see as problematic, I think is a great thing to
Right.
look at. I just don't see it as, I'm like you. It's kind of like, I want to get off the failure merry-go-round. I want to get on to the let's fix things. Right, exactly.
Let's have a meaningful action plan, right? And the other thing I don't like about the typical New Year's and I know you can have a New Year's resolution and you can have goals. I'm just, like I said, if other people want to have something specific at the beginning of the year, that's fine. I also don't have an attention span that lasts a year. So to me, I like to set shorter term goals, maybe no more than like 3, maybe 4 months of focus on something and try to move the marker forward. But me trying to focus on something all year long or all lifelong, like I have to kind of cook for a while and then let it rest, and move on into other things and hope that those periods of attention to something integrated into my life in a new way.
And
I don't have to
there was a
constantly
really
be
good book,
focusing
and I
on
wish
it.
I could remember the title and the
And either it
author,
does or it
but it was
doesn't.
talking about creating new habits. No. No. I don't even.
Was it the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? Oh, okay. We're also now unofficially
Stephen Covey.
sponsored
Stephen
by.
Covey.
Is it James Covey? Is that his name? James? Is it James? Stephen Covey.
But we still want Diet
Sorry,
Coke. So.
Stephen. That will never be officially sponsored.
But the idea is
Can't get his
that
name right.
you start with something.
I've always
simple.
said that name right.
You don't start with this huge goal. You start with, I want to lose weight. Well, how about starting with just something like I'm going to eat a healthy breakfast? Just something like that. One of the things he talked about is,
that's good stuff.
that we already have established habits. Like when I get up in the morning and do my bathroom routine, then I'll go get a cup of coffee and I'll sit and read the news. Oftentimes
careful.
I'll open up my phone and I'll read the news. And he said, if there's something in particular you want to do, then connect it with that habit. So, an example of this would be if let's say I want to read my Bible every day. Well, I set my Bible right where I read my news, so that it's connected with. Oh, I get up, I have my coffee, I do
There you
this,
go.
and then I do this, and so the two habits actually get connected together. So just simple things like that.
That's a good idea.
If there's habits I'm trying to break, then I want to make sure that I do something, move something that changes that habit. So for example, and this is going to be a really simple example, but if let's say I come home every day and I grab the chip bag and eat a bunch of chips and I want to break that, one of the ways I can do that is move the chip bag from where it normally is to a different location, so it's automatically triggering me to say, do I want to do this? Just a little, versus totally getting rid of all the chips in the house and then just being angry
Yeah.
because there's nothing to eat,
Oh, see, that's my solution.
Well,
Just stop
and
buying
maybe
chips.
that's the thing you do is you say,
Because I have no
but-
self-control.
And maybe that's the thing you do is you say, but
Or put the chip bag next to the exercise machine.
which is buried by the
You
clothes, which
can't
is now the
remember
clothes
where it
hanger.
is.
But but I mean, there was these little simple things that it was like we set out these. Oh, I'm going to lose 50 pounds in the next year. Well, why not start with something small and build and add to that? So
where does faith fit in? Why not start with something small and build resolution?
So where does faith fit into this whole resolution, goal setting kind of side of life? Where do you think faith? How does faith play a part in that? Because I think sometimes people make these goals and they it's something like faith is a different category in their mind. Like I have goals, maybe I have goals about my faith, but everything else that it's just like a different compartment
wow,
in
that's
life.
a great question.
And we don't necessarily connect the two.
I think a part of where my mind goes in that question is that it begins with connecting the faith to all those other parts. It's that if my worldview is my faith is in a compartment and everything else is not in that same compartment, then I've missed the point of God as creator and engager in all things in my life. And so it's almost if we put God in the box until we're ready to pull him out. And sometimes God is right next to the exercise machine.
So my
So my my favorite one of my favorite places in the universe is the Container Store. Have you ever been?
seriously, no. I have this.
You're looking at me like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. No, seriously, I have this. I'm a disorganized person, but I love the idea of organization, and so going to the Container Store is so cool. They have every little tote, box, container, tub, Tupperware, hooks for things, racks, closet solution. I mean, just like every possible
Today's episode is
organizational
sponsored by
thing
the
you could
Container Store.
imagine in the Container
Unofficially.
Store. So cool.
As you were talking,
And as you were talking, I had this picture in my mind of if faith is only like one container, if you have a container for faith and you have a container for work and a container for family, and they're all separate categories, all separate containers in your life. I think what we need to do is expand our faith container and make it where everything else goes into it, so that it is the master category of our life, and then everything
so
else is a part of it, rather than it's a
if
separate
I am
category
concerned about
of
my
our
health,
lives.
what is my connection to my faith in regards to that? Or if I am concerned about how I am as a husband or a
Right.
father, how is my faith connected to that? And so much of the advice that is given in Scripture talks about how we can persevere, how we can be disciplined, how we can work through these things, along with the encouragement that goes along with that. And so I think that, if I try and separate things out from God, then I also separate out His power of creation. But if I include Him in all aspects of my life, then I can engage in the idea that He didn't create just me spiritually. He created me mentally, physically, emotionally, and I can engage in all parts. And my family, He gave me my family. I can
every part of
engage
me.
Him in my wife and in my children and my grandchildren. He gave me the talent and ability to do my job, so I can engage Him in my dealing with my employees, or dealing with my boss, or dealing with any struggles that are going along, dealing with proper measures and integrity and all those kinds of things. That when He permeates all of those things in that big container, my faith then is engaged in all aspects, and not just in my, do I read my Bible, do I pray, do I go to church?
so then I would say,
Do I go to church? Those things. So then I would say that prayer becomes a significant factor
prayer should
in
central.
goal setting, resolutions, whatever you want to call it. But prayer should be central to that process of saying, okay, God, what do you want me to focus on in my personal life or in my emotional health? What do you want me to focus on in my work environment? What do you want me to focus on in my family dynamics? And really allowing God to direct that as much as we're able. And if it's well, yeah, I could pray that thing, but I don't know that I hear clear answers. Then there's great ways to kind of open your life up and talk to a trusted Christian friend or a Christian leader or somebody that, like, here's what I'm considering. Give me feedback, because as the scripture says, in the abundance of counselors, there's wisdom, and so you add some input from other sources, and then sometimes it's as simple as this is a technique in prayer that I'm learning about. I'm trying to implement in my own life, but I'm struggling. But to write down, almost in a journaling thing, but really almost in a conversation with God, but literally to write it down and say, God, I'm thinking about making this my next goal. What do you think? ? And then pause, and then start to write God's answer. Tom, I think you should.
It may feel presumptuous,
and see where it goes.
but
It may feel presumptuous, but the bottom line, because you're writing it down, but the bottom line is you're just listening with an active pen, and you see where it goes, and then you look at it, what you wrote, and be like, does that sound like something God would want me to do? Then maybe I'm gonna give that a try. And it's definitely a faith-oriented stance of I'm going to trust that I could really.
That was exactly what I was going to say. Is that
God,
we've got to be willing to listen to what the answer might be, because if here would be my example, is if a person came to God and said, God, my goal, my hope for the next year is to lose weight. What do you think? And his answer is, how about if you forgive this person? What do you think? And it's like, no, I don't want to forgive that person. And it's like, so do you do what God wants, or do you want to do what I want? And in my Hallmark mind,
right?
But I think sometimes what God does is saying, if you want to lose weight, it starts with this. Well, I can't do that. Then you're never going to get here because you can't even do this. And the reason you're eating a package of Oreos in a stressful situation is because every time you think of that person, because you are still holding on to the bitterness, the anger. And so I think that sometimes we are afraid to ask the question, not because we're afraid to ask the question, we're afraid how God would answer. And that's the thing is, our God is a gentle, kind, merciful, graceful, loving, and love-filled God. He's not going to give us something that is like, it's like, oh, let me see if I can, let's see how much I can
twist.
Is it going to, would he ask us to do things that are uncomfortable? Yeah. But he's not going to ask us something he's not going to ask us to do something uncomfortable just to make us uncomfortable. He's always going to ask us to do something uncomfortable to move us to a better place.
So there's some other stuff as I was just thinking about how faith fits in. There's some other stuff.
Right. So there's some other stuff as I was just thinking about how faith fits in. There's some other stuff that popped for me. There's a mention in Colossians about special days, and it was kind of in the early church. It was the ongoing struggle between Jewish Christians and non-Jewish Christians, and the Jewish Christians had these holidays that were part of their Jewish heritage that were commemorating things like their escape from Egypt and the establishment of Israel as a nation and all that kind of stuff. And so there were holidays that went along with their Jewish heritage. But then there were all these new followers of Jesus that weren't Jews. And there was this struggle, like, do we have to become Jews to be Christian? Like, do we have to follow all of your Jewish holidays and all that, or do we not? And it was very clear in many parts of the New Testament that no, you don't have to become a Jew to become a Christian. You can be a follower of Jesus, and Jewish heritage has its own purpose and own value, and some people continue to celebrate those holidays, but
Every day is like
from God's point of view,
there's not a
every day is like another.
holiness to
Like there's not a special holiness to this holiday versus that holiday. In fact, a lot of the holidays that we celebrate are like things that we've created to commemorate things that are important to us. But to, like, for example, I always kind of laugh at this a little bit, for Christians, Easter, that's the holiday. It's celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. It's acknowledging his death and celebrating his resurrection.
celebrate it every week.
Which that's a big deal. But we pretty much celebrate it every week of the year. I mean, if you go into almost any church service, it would be hard to be in a church service and nobody mentions the cross
Alive and
and nobody mentions, Jesus alive and real, and
especially
and so to an extent, yeah, we do take a moment to kind of specially focus on that.
we didn't have a
But
specific
it's a truth that supersedes any particular holiday. And if we didn't have a specific
celebrating it every
Resurrection Sunday, like,
because it is
okay,
has radically changed.
I'm celebrating it every day of my life because it is the thing that has radically changed my life. And so ultimately, is any one day more special, more important than another? No,
I think that's something
every day has its own stuff to deal with. And so I think that's something good for us to remember, that, there's nothing magical about, and I guess this is part of my resistance to, my personal resistance to New Year's resolutions, is like, just because it's the New Year, like, how is January 1st really any different than June 23rd?
Well, it acknowledges the first day of the year.
It's
and
it's
that's
another
about the
day.
extent of it. I know people who go, don't do anything for my birthday because it's just another day of the year. And it's like, okay, that works. January 1st is another day of the year. And and that's kind of where I'm like, yeah, okay.
So there's that, and then there's
Yeah.
also and that's kind of where I'm beautiful truth that God's mercies are new.
So there's that, and then there's also the truth, the beautiful truth that God's mercies are new every morning,
Hopeful
and that's from. It's interesting, that beautiful, hopeful expression is out of a book in the Bible that is lamenting the destruction of Jerusalem, and it's this guy who's grieving over his city's destruction, and the God's people being unfaithful to their God, but then also their nation being conquered by another nation, people deported, people dying, and just this horrible situation. And it's like he's standing there looking at the wreckage of his homeland,
that His mercies.
and God speaks to him, and part of what he utters is that his mercies are new every morning.
Informs that whole sense.
And so
You have a resolution.
it really,
You want to call it.
to me, informs that whole sense of, if you have a resolution or a goal or whatever you want to call it,
His mercies.
and you find yourself having strayed far from it,
Like to go
his mercies are new every morning. Like, it is never too late to go back and say, no, I want to get back on track. I want to get focused again on these things that are important to me, that are meaningful in my life. His mercies are new every morning. I think often
turn to God's
people may hesitate
and life
to return to God's presence just in their own thoughts and life, because they feel
fundamentally
like he's disappointed.
His mercies are
And I think fundamentally,
you wake up. He's not
his mercies are new every morning. Every time you wake up, he's not. He's taking you where you're at in that moment, and in that moment, if you're like, "Hey, I want to get back on track," he's awesome. Let's go.
that's not the God that
He's not. Yeah, but yesterday you were terrible. That's not the God that we serve.
where faith
Yeah.
fits into this
So
process of
those are things that I think just like as where faith fits into this process of resolving issues in our lives and recommitting to issues in our lives, then I think it's important for us to understand that every day is a new start.
When we talk about where faith meets culture, that is a really good reminder to us as believers that we have the power to encourage other people in their goals or their resolutions, to be able to talk about, yesterday is gone. You have today, but you have a new day. Your mercies were brand new today. Start again. Don't. Yeah. Yeah.
That's my big problem with cancel culture. It is. I mean, really, because cancel culture doesn't factor in that his mercies are new every morning. It's like, you made one mistake, you're done. We never want to see you again. I just, that's not.
And cancel
that's
culture,
not
at least so many times
a
that
value
I've seen it
that I
happen,
can stick with.
it's almost as if you are being condemned again for something that you did years ago that's been brought back up into the current culture. And in the current culture, is it wrong? Yeah. And many people said, yeah, you're right.
Right.
It's wrong in today's culture. It was not considered wrong back then. And maybe it was wrong back then, but it was not considered wrong. And so, but people are saying, people are losing jobs and being fired and, all kinds of stuff. I think that's a great point. And I think that as believers, we are called to reconciliation. We are called to bring reconciliation. And sometimes that reconciliation can be as simple as, you've got this. God's mercy is new on you today. Keep going. Don't stop. It's okay.
So what are you going to do, you, Scott? What are you going to do differently in 2024?
So what are you going to do, you, Scott? What are you going to do differently in 2024?
I don't know if I'm necessarily going to do anything differently. I think that, if you ask me what my goals for 2024 are, I have several goals that I've started that I would like to accomplish in 2024. Like I've got a backyard that's in disarray that I've started to redo, so it's in mid-project. I would like to see if I can finish that in 2024.
Right.
I always in the process somewhere of reading through the Bible, but I would like to finish my current read through in 2024. I think if there was something that I would like to resolve, is getting more proficient again, maybe at playing guitar and then singing, at doing harmonies and those kinds of things, because I've been doing that more and more with our praise band here at church. And there is a simple joy that comes to me through that. And it's really interesting because there is this tension between the joy it brings me and my insecurities. And sometimes my insecurities win out and sometimes my joy wins out. And I would like my joy to win out. I would like my joy to win out more than my insecurities.
That's good to be able to identify that, though.
How about you?
Well, I'm in the middle of
Yeah.
How about you?
Well, I'm in the middle of
some things in my prayer life and
trying to improve some things in my prayer life, and there's no way I'm going to be where I want to be at the end of December. And so definitely that will carry over, and that's something I'll be working on for a little while. And then I think, and I don't know what shape it's going to take, I think there's some things in my life as a leader that I need to resolve, or maybe even just solve
a solution.
I need a
There we go.
a a solution. I'm like, wow, Scott just saw my eyes get big. I need a solution for this thing, and I've never had it's not a resolution, it's a solution. But I think there's some things in leadership that don't come naturally to me that I need to figure out how to either compensate or bring them into my leadership life. So there's some things that I think on that side, but I haven't given that a lot of thought. That's kind of more of off the cuff. I'm thinking ahead. And I probably, frankly, won't spend a lot of time on that until after I feel like I've at least made some ground on the prayer. That prayer thing is going to be a large focus in my life. And then after that, I think I'm really good. I'm not a good multitasker, so I kind of like to have one major thing I'm working on at any given moment. And latter part of this year, it was physical health, and I've kind of shifted. I'm still doing some stuff on physical health, but it kind of shifted to spiritual and prayer. And then once that kind of feels like it's grinding forward, it might shift into leadership.
One of the things that I just thought about comes right back to
so
the
that's
whole
for me.
reason we do the podcast is that I would like to develop a better way of engaging spiritual conversation in culture. I mean, and part of that for me is that honestly, most of the people I know are already Christians. And so part of that is breaking out of that mold and finding a place where I'm engaging in something that is engaging with non-believers and then being able to have those conversations. And so, and that really is a resolve for me, because that's been something that's oftentimes been on my radar. I just have never quite figured out where is the place in my community that I want to engage in that is not Christian based, is not right, exactly.
Where you can be salt and light. Yeah. That's good. Well, I hope for our listeners that whether you resolve or whether you're a resolutions person or not, or a goals person or not, I hope that you will be actively involved in the ongoing process of what theologians would call sanctification, that this process of God continuing to grow and develop your character to become more and more Christ-like in our character. And to me, that's the ongoing process that we're trying to resolve is to grow more and more like Him. And I hope this conversation kind of spurs some other ones for you.
Happy New
and
Year.
We'll see you next time.
So from us at the Resisting Pretense team, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's.